We all good now?
Go down on this one.
I don't know. Good afternoon and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. Today is Thursday, June 14th, year of our Lord 2018. You're listening to a Gen Pop Media production. We're broadcasting live from the CRBradio.com facilities in Redford, Michigan. And it's a beautiful Thursday. We got the guys in here. I'm going to do some testimonies and then go in an open forum. But first, I want you to remember it's not down the conventional hole. It's down the rabbit hole. It's important not to carry someone else's mistakes forward, especially not ours. Please don't take anything we say for gospel unless, of course, we're quoting the gospel. The information is out there. You just have to want to find it because there are no more secrets, only innocence. I want to start out the show with shout-outs to a couple important support. Huh? What'd I say?
Innocence. But there are no innocents either, I'll tell you that.
Well, that's true.
How are you guys doing today?
Good.
I feel like there's like a lull.
Is this mic on?
Yeah, I don't think it's on. I think this is just technical. Oh, wait, I can't say that.
I just can't hear it. That's kind of weird.
Oh, okay. It's because it's mismarked. What a shock.
It's 5, right?
Is it on now?
Yeah, you're good. Yes.
How are you guys
It's
doing?
hot.
Good.
I'm fantastic.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm serious
Fantastic.
about that. Not even sarcastic.
What makes it fantastic?
I'm breathing. I can walk.
Yeah, you did, but you can do those things on bad days. What's special about this one?
I don't know. It's just a good day. Is it a problem?
No,
Okay, good.
I'm trying to understand.
The weather's
I
nice.
know it's not a problem.
Don't pee on my Wheaties, dude. I'm having a nice day. Sorry.
I think Tony has a problem. Do you have a problem? Do you have a problem?
You got a problem? You talking to me?
You talking? Oh, speaking of you talking to me, a lot of people are talking to Robert De Niro.
Dude, what a freak, dude. He's lost his mind.
I know. You got a
No,
little
no,
out of
no,
order.
well, You're defending him a little bit.
Defend him a little bit. You got a little out of
You
order
know,
yourself. No.
I think that shows you, though, there's some freaking out going on behind the scenes.
Oh, for sure. He's losing his
I mean,
mind.
how many resignations, suicides, very strange occurrences, people dropping off the radar. Many of them were predicted by Q over the last year, or, 7 months or so. And Robert De Niro. See, think about this. If you are involved in pedophilia in some way, I mean, there's only one of two things you can do right now. Go hide for cover because you're about to become a total pariah, or use whatever you've got left to keep this story from coming out. Somehow overcome. And I think they are trying everything to close down what this president is doing, because what he's doing is not on the mainstream media. What he's doing is it's a work of art, whether it's of the devil or of God, that is yet to be determined. This is, like, for me, 50-50, but it's an unbelievable unfolding story, including, I'm going to say alleged, because I did not have a lot of time to research this week. I really didn't look into this, other than caught just a few snippets of 2 attempted missile strikes on Air Force One or on the Singapore meeting
That
with the Koreas.
I was not aware of.
There were some pictures. I think you're referring to the pictures that were put out, like on the Q post and on YouTube. A bunch of people were posting it.
Well,
it sounded like there was a missile that went off and it was intercepted.
Apparently, there were 2.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Q, I believe, also referenced these attacks, and he's now, to me, authenticated himself. This man's in the White House, or this person is very close to the president. I showed Jay yesterday. There's another way to authenticate yourself. What was the term yesterday, Jay, that Trump said right as he made a Q sign?
You know what? I forget what he was talking about, but it seemed like it had nothing to do with it. Like,
there was a phrase that Q puts out.
Where we go one, where we go all.
It wasn't that phrase, but let's just pretend it was that phrase.
Mm-hmm.
And he made a reference to, I'm with the president. So Q puts this out on a text message. Okay, on his Q postings. Then you've got Trump, and I believe it was later that day or the next day, as he's giving a mini press conference, and it looked like it was at the White House. And again, I don't remember the phrase, but we'll just say it was where we go one, we go all. And just as he says the phrase that Q said will identify that I'm with the president makes a Q with his hand.
Really?
You guys aware of this?
No, I'm
No.
not aware of that.
I showed it to Jay. I mean, what did you think of it?
He absolutely. No one's ever made a Q hand gesture for no reason in their entire life.
But it wasn't just the hand gesture. The hand gesture happened as he said the exact
phrase.
words
Well.
that Q said would authenticate that I'm coming from the president. So it's either the most miraculous story of prophetic luck, or he just authenticated himself that this guy is literally inside the White House.
There's
But
a lot.
he's authenticated himself multiple ways.
There's certainly a lot cooking.
A lot more
There's
than
a lot cooking, and it ain't on the news.
yet.
Look,
It's starting to.
I would say it's kinda, if but it's not. I mean, there's so much stuff going on right now that it's dizzying, actually.
You won't know that if you're a mainstreamer. If you come home and turn on your cable to get your information about the world, you probably are not going to know this is going on. Although you have Fox beginning to cover it, because what Q's basically been saying is where this investigation is going to lead, it's going to end up being turned on the heads of the very investigators that were conducting this, what seems to be now a witch hunt. And in the course of doing that, this massive global satanic, demonic, whatever you want to call it, pedophilia, child trafficking. I mean, topics that are just, as a father, they're hard to talk about. But we've got how many sealed indictments now? And don't just trust that word. Go look it up. You can look it up on Pacer. Go look it up on LexisNexis. There are ways to find this out with certainty. But we're plus 30,000 now.
That's a lot. 30 times what's typically the max, right?
1,000.
Yeah, so it's 30 times that, right? Yeah. I mean, it's pretty simple math. I think I got it right.
Yeah, that's
It's a lot.
that's
So-
3,000% more than normal. Something's going
Yeah, right.
on, people.
Yeah, I mean, it's
It could
probably-
also be remember, this could be the ushering in of the Antichrist.
Could
and
be.
for all we know, those 30,000 indictments are actually indictments of people like us.
that could be.
And
Yeah.
we suddenly all go off air at one point,
That could be.
and then the powers that be say, oh, we got the evil element out of the country, everyone feels better, and,
Right.
game.
They got to share a bunk with Alex Jones.
The jig is up.
Some unlucky
Yeah.
SOB is going to have to share a bunk with Alex Jones.
Quiet down.
That's what I have to say. I'm excited about that.
It makes the news cycle more interesting. I'll at least do that. I'll at least give it that, because now I'm looking for what's going on. I'm kind of more engaged than I was before, because now and again, it's not proven. You can't prove it, but it's leaning towards, for me, more and more that it's legitimate. So now when I watch anything that's in the news, I'm always trying to see, okay, this is what they're saying, but what is really going on? And you learn some interesting things when you start to research what's available as public information. It's
What's
lots
incredible
of,
is
lots
there
of
are
stuff going on.
There are 3 storylines developing. One is the mainstream media storyline, which is Trump is incompetent,
Russian
He's-
collusion, Spygate.
misogynistic, he's racist. I mean, he's just the worst human being that's ever lived. That's storyline number 1. And no matter what let's look at the statistics of the country. Economy, better than ever. Peace, closer than
Yeah.
one of the nuclear threats in the world seems to be somewhat at bay, having made progress that no president in U.S. history ever made. I mean, this was the first president to ever meet with a North Korean leader.
Right.
It's interesting. The news would say that any president could have met with
Yeah, but they
Kim
didn't,
Jong Un,
so-
but they didn't. That's right.
They
because
talked
they
about
didn't
it,
want to.
but they didn't.
That's
So.
right.
Maybe they didn't
Well,
have
that's
anything
because
to talk about.
their handlers said no.
Yeah.
We need them as an enemy, or
Right.
we don't want peace with
Don't
them. We want
don't
to take
mess
them
up our satellite office,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
So the mainstream, even like mainstream media, the brainwashed sheep, let's say, even they are starting to be like, okay, well, where's this Russian? Where is it? I mean, where is the smoking gun? I mean, to mobilize thousands of people into an investigation.
At a cost, by the way.
Yes. And as certain facts of the investigation unfold, for instance, the Obama administration put a spy into the Trump campaign.
Right.
Now, when that was discovered, first of all, that was denied. But then when it was discovered, what was the story? That right there is bigger than Watergate, right there. So little coverage, so little, shh, be very quiet.
Well,
That's not covered heavily.
You have to dismiss it. The way they dismiss it is, it's not a spy. It's confidential informant.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Now you're talking about semantics.
No, now
that
they're
using.
They're changing the story to say that, we put the guy in there to help Obama, or to help Trump, so that he wasn't getting hacked, or wasn't getting. First of all, what is it you think another nation can do? What do you think? Do you think they can literally break into our voting machines?
Well, they say they can't because they're supposedly hack-proof. But what do I know? I'm not a voting machine expert, so maybe they can.
And do the Russians really care who's president?
The machines aren't hack-proof. They've shown. I've heard different testimony from different people that the machines can be hacked. Actually, DHS was hacking into the computers.
If they're plugged in via even
2016.
an electrical cable, they can be hacked, because you can now get internet. I mean, you can use electric cables to hack some. So even if these things would have to be self-powered and standalone.
The question is why. If you're really concerned about voter integrity, you've got a system with a piece of paper where you put it down, you put your name and all that stuff. There's your record right there.
Well, we had to solve the hanging Chad problem. Right?
All these things they do, this is all spin, this is all stuff to keep this fake RNC versus DNC or right versus left going.
Yeah, if one of my favorite memes is it says Republican checkbox, Democrat checkbox, or awake checkbox. Because if you are still getting played by this Democrat Republican Hegelian show, you shouldn't be listening to this show. You just shouldn't. This is not a political show, even though we talk about politicians. So the three stories are mainstream media's Trump is the worst thing since sliced bread. Second story coming out of the White House is Trump is on the defensive. He wants to get to the bottom of this IG report of the Russian collusion. He wants to clear his name. He wants to make America great again. He wants peace with South Korea, North Korea, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, that's the official line. Now there's a second story coming out of the White House making up the third story going on in the world. And that's the story we've picked up on that is picking up at just an exponential rate, is the fact that this is what's incredible, is our president right now has two conversations going on in the world to Americans, to two very divided groups of Americans, not divided by geography, divided by beliefs, by their spiritual nature, literally, where he knows that he's limited in what he can say in the mainstream media. Some things they just won't cover. I mean, I've shown you quotes here that are just astonishing that the mainstream media does not ever cover. So he's got to have one dialogue that works there, that will ultimately fit in with this jigsaw puzzle at the end. And then he has another dialogue going on with the fully aware part of the country, which is the numbers are growing. I mean, the number of people that have their eyes even slightly open. And I think we can use 9/11 as a decent barometer, because you've got roughly 50%. Now we're at 50% of our nation does not believe the official story anymore. That's more than half. So if you still believe the official story, you're actually now in the minority of people. So, if you've gotten as far as 9/11, your eyes are at least opened a little bit. You're starting to see that there is an esoteric, a hidden agenda that is at play here in this world. And that's a massive audience that does not get their information from mainstream news. And what has he done? He has started a dialogue with them directly that they would know to pick up, that they would know to follow up on, that we're doing the job that the constitutionally protected institution of journalism is supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But they are not, because all of our journalists are actually propagandists.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all witches in a coven, but that's another story. We'll get to that later. But there's more truth to that, people, than I can really explain right now.
Yeah.
So these three conversations are happening at the same, and they're all going to merge at one point. And what the Illuminati has been doing to the world through soft disclosure and predictive programming is literally what is happening now. It's shows like ours, and there's thousands of them. To one show by itself, you know, what's our audience since we've started? 20, 30,000 people have tuned in at one point or another. You look at a show like, anything you find on cable that's on your nighttime news, it's got 10 million. It's got millions. I mean, so we're just a grain of sand to them. We're nothing. But cumulatively, you start to add up 1,000 shows like this, and now you've got, it's all disjointed and disorganized.
But
getting organized. Q is actually, there is some organization. No instructions have been sent to anyone. No manual, no playbook. But this is where this almost hyperhuman intelligence is coming in, because someone knew how this body of people would react. And there's very little that I'm aware of in history of such a effective counter move to power in any, let's call it a pre-revolutionary state or country, like this one is. We are on the verge of a revolution, whether it's bloody or not. When arrest day happens, first of all, one of the things Q talks about is there's going to be a level of shock that most people, like when they realize what it is that these people are really involved in. I mean, how do you think ma and pa kettle are going to react when they first hear from an official source on top? Because it's not true until someone on TV says it. Like, we don't know who killed JFK because no one on TV's come on to say it, right?
Right.
But you can find out who killed JFK. We don't know who did 9/11 for real because no one on TV has said it, but that's going to come out. That is one of the many things that will come out. When arrest day happens, what's going to happen in the country that day?
Well, there's going to be shock, for one. People are just going to be back on their heels, not knowing what to think, because, like you said, one thing that I could see happening is, and this goes to our show we watch, that Colony show.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm behind an episode, so don't spoil it.
Yeah, I didn't watch yesterday's or whenever it was. So anyway, they're throwing things out there. One of the things was in a past show is they have this guy kind of like us. Mm-hmm. He comes out and he's got this website information that he's getting out. He's getting government contacts. He's finding out this information. He's putting it out. So what happens? Agents come in, raid his home, take him away. Basically, they throw down a packet on the table, like this is like the Matrix scene, with they're sitting across the table with Agent Smith, and this is what we got on you. And he's got pedophilia.
All child porn.
Child porn, pedophilia stuff. He's like, what is this? This is all the evidence we collected from your hideout where you do your stuff. So they planted all this information. So they're basically going to turn around and say, and he says something about, they got me on a trumped-up charge. So this is where I see, logically, where would this go? Once this stuff starts to come out, they're going to be claiming, hey, Trump is the bad guy. This guy here is trying to make you believe that all this stuff is going on. That's crazy.
Well, there's a key to that conversation that leads to it, because he made a point to the FBI agent on the show, right, that he said, you guys made a big mistake, because what you don't understand is I have millions of subscribers and people that listen to what I say. So, you know, I'll just get the message out through my fan base, basically, right? Paraphrasing.
You just helped me.
And the FBI agent says, "Are they going to listen to a pedophile and through this packet down in front of them? They're going to trust a kiddie raper?" And basically, it's all this stuff. And he's like, "Well, you planted that," and he's just kind of like, "Well, that's the way it goes." I mean, you know. And then on his way out, if you remember this part of it.
Now, who are the players in this story?
Well, it's the whole show is complicated, but basically it was the guy who's the conspiracy theorist, right? And he's getting arrested by the FBI because he's getting real close to the truth and exposing what it is that's really going on. And everyone else doesn't see it. They think it's something else. It's a deception. And he's like the Alex Jones of the day, right? He's like one of the conspiracy guys.
Is this a hypothetical story, or did this really happen?
No, this is a show.
It's a TV show. It's called Colony.
Oh, this is what's going on in okay.
Yeah.
So
all right, gotcha.
it was interesting. That was an interesting scene because here you go. And I think you're onto something because, you know, any given show, just use Alex Jones as an example because he's got such a big audience base. You add all these guys up, and they literally add up to the millions. But you take the biggest players, and like you said, they may come and, you know, say, "Oh, well, hold on a second. No, you guys have been wrong. See, here we got this. We found this in Jones's camper, or he had a secret cabin in the woods, and we found." So as that FBI agent's walking out of the interrogation room, if you remember that exchange, he figures it out in his head that somebody betrayed him.
Yeah.
Then he goes, "All right, who was it that betrayed me?" And the guy's answer was really interesting. He goes, "Somebody who decided to be on the right side of history, walked out the door and slammed the door." Interesting.
Isn't that an interesting show?
It is a very interesting show.
Fantastic show.
But you're right. I think you're going to see this kind of scenario play out. They'll stop at nothing.
All these news. You talked about De Niro. Number one, De Niro. You know, I've loved his acting. Okay, he's been a great actor, been in some great movies. But if you ever heard the interviews with him or live stuff, he's not a bright guy.
I have.
He's not an interesting guy. He's not a bright guy. He just delivers lines well.
Yeah,
and that's what he's doing right now.
Used to be a good actor.
Used to be a good actor.
I don't know of a good movie recently.
No, just a little.
So I offended him a little bit.
So, but the point is, he is working a job right now because he just doesn't say much, but he's making it a point to come out and make all these comments and saying, towing the line exactly what you're saying about the media being against Trump. You know, they're trying to turn all this stuff against this guy. And I'm looking back and I'm thinking, like, first of all, it doesn't make sense. If you watch that show, I think that you sent the link on to it, Dave, where it had the Christian with Alex Jones talking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not they dislike Trump because they disagree with his policies or they think he's a jerk, or it goes much further than that. There are things going on.
Well, he's a threat to their freedom. I mean, these
Absolutely.
people are staring
Their life.
Absolutely, and you can see it.
I mean, we're
ramping up.
talking like, if this story comes out properly, the lives of many people that had nothing to worry about 3 years ago, and that this group of people have had nothing to literally worry about, almost literally. And I can't think of a time before since the Salem witch trials that this cabal has been this scared. Now, hopefully, this isn't a play on us, which again,
It could be, man. Yeah, it could be. But you know, like they say about a drowning person, right? I mean, if they get them, you back them into a corner far enough, and they're drowning. They'll take you down to
and they're not
get air, man.
Obviously, the playbook that's being used is the Illuminati's playbook. So it's not like all these 30,000 folks are like in a room together. They don't even know who the other.
Right.
They don't know who's who. Everything's being monitored. You don't think these 30,000 every word is being listened to, every email? And if they talk about their indictment, I'm sure they're going to get in trouble. So no one knows the unease that must be going on. And so what happens is, and if you want to understand how secret societies work, how the demonic world works, go watch a movie called, I think it's called Brotherhood of the Bell. You guys familiar with it?
No.
1970s movie. And basically, it would be along the lines of Robert De Niro gets a phone call from someone that he knows that he needs to be loyal to, that it would be a higher-ranking person, says, look, you got to use your star power. And it's not just Robert De Niro getting this call. Hundreds of people might be getting this call this week saying, you got to just come out blasting full bore.
So it's Jay-Z, De Niro, Beyonce. Yeah, I mean, you could start picking all these people out.
It's
by
the,
their hand
the
signals.
super duper stars.
Yeah.
I don't think you can become a superstar unless you are either completely pledged loyalty to Satan or you're anointed by God. God's at work too. He's got
Sure.
people in all industries just the same that evil does. So obviously someone intelligent is working on this plan. So little things, because what you said is a great point. I'm sure the media right now, let's call them, when I say the media, Anderson Cooper is not in on these meetings. These would be like the chief editors, the real CEOs of the big five media companies, which own every cable channel, period. They own our book publishers. They own our movie theaters. They own our radio stations. They control what is said. They own places like YouTube. Do you think it's an accident that we've been on YouTube for 4 years without a single negative mark? Never a copyright claim, never anything. If anything, YouTube, they put a copyright claim on my own movie,
Yeah.
proving to me that these are just bots that do this. But within 24 hours of us talking about Q for the very first time, I get a notice out of the blue from YouTube saying, you're no longer eligible to earn income off your videos. People can still see your videos, but you can't because you broke some policy. And I read their policy, and we didn't break a policy. I mean, we didn't break that policy. At least we didn't do anything wrong. But you understand how information is stifled. And so it starts with us like that. Like we're not, these stories don't catch fire online. Like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter are controlled by people. Google especially. I mean, you can see it just on their Google Chrome logo as a 666 right on it.
They're all being suppressed.
And yeah, as are we being suppressed.
Right.
So whereas, if this were a regular YouTube channel where I just had a video of my kid playing with toys, we'd have 3 million viewers.
More. Oh, yeah.
Okay. But if we're talking about something that is contrary to this hidden agenda in the world that's not so hidden anymore, no voice is too small to shut up. They will. I mean, we've all had weird things happen in our lives. I'm not going to mention a name on air, but we had a person that works for my company that was freaking out not long ago because he thought he was being followed and gang stalked, to which I responded, you probably are. I mean, I think it happened to you. I've had death threats. And what does that tell me? In the beginning, it scared me a little bit, but it just tells me we are getting close to the truth. Otherwise, if we were talking about how the conspiracy of how trees are really aliens and they're going to take over the world, I doubt they'd be trying to stifle us.
No, they want to throw you out there to.
Here's what
sure,
conspiracy
they
theorists have
promote
to say.
that. Yeah.
So
Offer you a show on Discovery.
So that clamp on that media machine is so heavy. Like even now, these guys they're now cooking themselves because we know what these guys are really involved in. Okay, I mean I've got video, for instance, even Walter Cronkite. I know he was in our homes, in our living rooms. That's what I grew up with. My parents loved him. Millions of people love Walter Cronkite. But on 2 occasions, on video, I literally have him saying that I praise Lucifer.
Really?
He's not joking either. Yeah, absolutely. Go look up Walter Cronkite
Here's another
praising Lucifer, and you watch the video for yourself. Tell me,
That's so weird.
is he joking?
So weird.
Here's another one with
Weird
that.
thing to joke about.
What was interesting, another interesting thing about that is, you remember during the campaign for 2016, Ben Carson said,
This was at the DNC speech?
Yes.
The RNC?
At the RNC, where he said, Hillary Clinton is a Luciferian.
Yeah.
You remember that? Said that in front of everybody.
We talked about it the next day because it was the first time I heard. I started hearing God and Lucifer a lot ever since Trump became president.
Yeah. But he said this, and I thought for sure, wow, that is going to be all over the media. They're gonna just, talk about this to death, about Carson stuff. Nothing. Crickets.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, wait a minute. This guy just said something that normally would be considered outrageous, right? They would say, hey, this guy is normally they'd come out and say, this guy, there's no reason for him to be president. He's crazy, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, this guy is this close to the president. He's worried about the devil, like he thinks the devil is real. Oh, my God. That's what they would do.
Most news people would do that, but, like you're saying, you've got a high level up here that does all the thinking for them. That's another example of how that works. They do all the thinking for them, so they dictate what's going to be on air. So they basically said, squash that.
Yeah, just
Nobody
don't talk
talks about it.
Yeah, just don't talk about it. Because he
Don't
actually
acknowledge
brought up in that public setting, other talk show hosts talk about it, but this was on television, very, very widely viewed event, probably globally, and he was spotlighting the fact that one of her, I believe she wrote her thesis on it. That I don't know, but he brought up Saul Alinsky's book, Rules for Radicals, and was talking about how he's a Luciferian, basically, satanic.
Yeah, he used
Right, in
the
his
word
book.
Satanist.
Right, and that's...
And
That's
there
what
is
was
a
like,
difference
whoa,
between
like, you really-
Luciferian and Satanist. They're not all the same. And
they're
when
not the same.
And when you think of Luciferians and Satanists, do not be thinking of Anton LaVey, the Church of Satan, okay? Those are the lowest rung. They're the ones that are paraded out for the media, for the world to think that is what Satanism looks like.
Yeah.
Not at all. Those are just the dumbest of the dumb. I mean, they're not even getting that many benefits out of pledging their life to... If you want, you could deal. You can negotiate with. You can negotiate with God too. Abraham negotiated with him.
Yeah.
And enough people have come out, literally, where there is a ritual. You do sell your soul to the devil. Oh well, we would have heard about that by now. Really? Well, not if the devil controls what you hear.
Right.
Ding ding.
And ask Anton LaVey how that worked out for him in the end.
Yeah, that's sad, isn't it?
The story about that is
Just
freaky.
if he didn't get it together, I hate, that's sad, man. That's a sad.
So the
that's sad.
story about Anton LaVey, and there's always for me an asterisk with deathbed confessions. Some are quoted in the book, but I consider that a secondary source because
Who
you
knows?
can say whatever you want to say that they say on their deathbed. But apparently, he was surrounded by a bunch of people, his family. He's dying as a Satanist, and he's under the impression that he is going to a party in hell where it's going to be sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And there have been enough NDEs, near-death experiences, where there's almost like a lot of people experience this what's a good word for it? They're in the gray area of a crossing over where they almost can sense or feel or even see heaven and hell. And the ones that come back so freaked out. I mean, it changes their lives. And there are counterfeits all over the place. Understand that. But what happened with Anton LaVey, he was, just as he was dying, he was like in and out of, in his final moments. And he goes unconscious. His eyes come back open, and he starts screaming, wait a minute. This is wrong. This is not supposed to be happening. This is not, no. And those were his last words. We don't know what happened to him.
Well,
No.
we kind of know.
I think we know what happened to him.
Maybe we know.
But he just figured out what was really happening, because Satan's not going to honor agreements.
No. It's
So
just sad.
If you have cut some deal with some secret society somewhere, or you're taking an oath, and you don't even know who you're taking this oath to, you're just promising to be secret. And what are you going to get in return for it? Income, business opportunities, fame, money, prestige, whatever it is. I mean, there's a passage in the Bible that talks about that, and it's the love of money. Not money. Money by itself is nothing, but the love of money is the root of all evil. And we love this thing that has no value. It's a sheet of paper. It has no value. So, if arrest day comes, and I say if, we're either the ones getting arrested, and if not, if it's the bad guys, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, that could kick off a World War III. That could kick off certainly a revolution inside the United States. There easily could be a martial law period where there's military ready to go in every city just in case. Because a lot of Americans very possibly are going to be fed the story that what Trump is doing is he's taking over America. This is a coup. He's wiping out our democracy, which we don't even want a democracy, even though we've been trained to go, we want a democracy. He's wiping out our form of government so he can become a dictator. And a lot of people will probably believe it.
They believe it now.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be a slam dunk if that goes on.
So that's why I'm not freaked out that there's not this rush to arrest everyone. Let's get your P's and Q's crossed. Let's every week, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of, maybe even millions of people at this point, every week are learning who Q is, what he is, and whether it's Ben Carson talking about Lucifer, whether it's us talking about Q, or whether it's John Todd, an Illuminati defector in 1972, saying, you cannot research the Illuminati and realize and not come away a real believer that they are, in fact, very real. And that's very true. You can't research Q. You can't research Luciferianism, Satanism, secret societies without coming away changed.
Right.
Because you're going to realize. And then you're going to a period of time that for some people it takes a few weeks. For some people it takes a few months. It took me about 8 or 9 months to mentally get my arms around the fact that the world is so different than what I was in such shock.
Yeah. We've all gone through that in some way, shape, or form.
Which leads perfectly into what we were going to go to. Have you guys experienced any moments of just this inner, I can't effing believe what I'm looking at. I can't believe, do I even believe myself? Have you guys had that moment? Are there any moments of shock that stand out for you guys?
Utter shock? I don't know if I would. It was more, for me, it was I think essentially it was more relief as far as not wondering what's really going on. Now you kind of get it. So like, oh, okay. And then you put the pieces together.
I'd have to agree. I felt the same. I don't really feel shock about anything. We were talking before the show. It's like anything that you hear from the media or government or whatever, it's a lie right off the bat. So
well, you do.
Yeah.
And you do.
Right. Fair.
So let me say it like this. If someone would have come up to you, Tony, 5 years ago, I think we're going back far enough, and said, oh, you're going to be on a radio show talking about God, Satan, and the Illuminati in 5 years, what would you have said to that guy?
Well, yeah, that wouldn't have happened.
Okay. So what I'm trying to capture here is the Tony from 5 years ago to today. You never experienced shock along the way, or tell me about the emotional roller coaster. There had to have been something, because we're all a very long way away from where I think maybe we thought we'd be when we were younger. You know what I'm saying?
It's such a long story, though. I mean, it's hard to tell that story in 3 minutes, because, and we've talked about it a little bit. One of the big things is obviously Anatomy of a Great Deception, which was a great movie, and it's one that after you watch that, you hear some the things you didn't hear from the news, the things you don't hear from the news. To think that that story was wrong, it wasn't just wrong; it was a lie. The official story is a lie that we get from the government. So that kind of thing, once you realize that, that part of it kind of blows you away, and you don't really know where to go from there. you get the gaslight where you start questioning everything. And it's good to question everything because once you start looking into it, it's like that wasn't the first time that this has happened. I mean, you start going back to the Gulf of Tonkin. You go back to, World War II, Pearl Harbor. You go back to World War I. All these different things that have happened that put us into wars, and you're thinking like, what's
Who's
going
running
on?
all
Who's
this?
Who
All right,
could
so
be
you
possibly
figured
doing
that out though because you started researching after something happened between 5 years ago and today.
I'd say exactly what happened. From Dave and one of our buddies, we started looking into IG Farben and Agenda 21. Okay,
Now, what got you to look into that?
Because they were talking about it, and it actually gave me some information. I think Mark sent me a packet about the IG Farben. I started looking into it, which is kind of interesting because that's what's going on right now with our companies now. It's becoming big monopolies again, just like that whole situation was. So you start looking at it, it's like, wow, that's interesting. You start looking at Agenda 21. But like I said, once you look into that and you start getting on the YouTubes and all these alternative sources, that's when you start realizing that, hey, wait a minute. What these people are saying here on the media and what you're hearing on this other thing, this is two different things. This is not true. This is how you know you're being lied to. And that's why I said, and the biggest one has to be the 9/11.
Probably the easiest to spot. It was the one. I mean, there have been 4, 5, 6 massive stories in our lifetime. That's one of them, and that is the best. Howard pointed this out. It's the best documented event, of the big events by far. You can go back and review what was being recorded on 1 million VCRs, if anyone even remembers what that is. And the mistakes that happened in those original broadcasts, like the hologram image of the airplane passing through the Pentagon, passing through the World Trade Center, so that we could actually see the nose of the airplane on the other side of the building. Have you guys ever seen that one?
I've seen that one, yeah.
That's where it starts to you start to realize, oh my gosh, the level of deception here it's incredible. I mean, it is incredible. So it started with your first reaction then, Tony. So a couple of your friends bring up IG Farben and Agenda 21, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Codex Alimentarius.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is a conversation, very similar conversation. I'll bet you that has happened it's happening all the time all over the United States. Was this the first time someone had mentioned to you some of these, conspiracy type subjects, or had you heard them before?
Well, no. You hear conspiracy. Obviously, the conspiracy theory is looked at like you're an idiot, right? You're a tin hat. This whole term is meant to keep people from even talking about it.
It's meant to be degrading.
Right. You degrade these people, you don't even
to
want
be
to
honest,
talk about it.
I'm kind of proud of it. I kid you not. Like, I think it's another word for it is you're open-minded. Sorry.
Well, that's a little bit better way to put it. Open-minded. I like that.
Conspiracy theory.
Well, there's a lot of
Agenda
cool
21 is a good example because that was the one when I first heard it because we worked at the same company, so we were around the same people. My first impression was that it was a conspiracy theory. Like, yeah, whatever.
Right.
Interesting, but eh. And then some facts get thrown out, right? And then you go, huh. It kind of gets your attention, like, Then you go ahead and look it up and realize not only is it not a conspiracy theory, but this is something almost every country on the planet signed up to.
Mm-hmm.
And then they even went on to upgrade it to Agenda 2030, a whole other story. But once you realize that what this
And Agenda
guy,
21, so people understand, it's a depopulation plan.
It's a
self-sustaining is how they try to sell it.
And it's a depopulation plan that was thought up, and the plan exists, and this was thought up by total evil.
Yeah, for sure.
Total evil. And what's interesting is here you've got this ancient manuscript saying that in the last days, I mean, each of the 4 horsemen are going to take out roughly a quarter to a third. And by the time you're done, you've wiped out half the population on the planet, which is corroborated by the Georgia Guidestones and what Ted Turner has to say in interviews, and on and on and on and on and on. Because these people are trying to set up a one-world, quote-unquote, utopian for them, one-world government with about 500 to 1 billion people that are like replicant slaves. And by then they will have taken the mark of the beast. It'll be somewhat of a hive-like system. And your soul is lost once that happens. Your soul, you've killed it. You have killed it's suicide, literally. So for you then, Tony, it wasn't one big event. It was
like breadcrumbs.
a bunch of little small things that finally has...
The way I liken it is I try to picture things in my mind. Just, being a designer, that's how everything works. It's 3D, right? So you get these breadcrumbs that are thrown out. You start picking up the breadcrumbs, and you start picking them up all over the place. And pretty soon it's leading you like a spiral right down the rabbit hole. And that's literally how it goes.
I think that's a big moment in anyone's life, is the first time they get online to look something up for themselves. They have enough question in their head to go check something on their own as opposed to just listening to what the television has to tell you about it. That is a massive moment in your personal spiritual battle. And I promise you, and it's not my promise, it's someone else's promise. You follow that to the nth degree, you'll find God. Now, you might not want to. In fact, one of the quotes out of the 401 book, and Jay, maybe you can remember who did it, but he's like, an atheist can't find God for the same reason that a burglar can't find a police officer.
I like that one.
But you're only putting off the inevitable, because we will all face our Maker. Much, much better to do it here on the training ground than in front of a big judgment seat. Because by then, if that's when you figure this out, too late.
Yeah, you gotta pack your chute before you actually get on the airplane.
Yeah.
Because if you jump off the airplane, you didn't pack your chute yet, like you're hosed. It's too late at that point. Sorry. It's just too late. You already jumped out of the plane. You didn't pack your chute, man.
And ignorance is not...
Sorry.
There's no waiver for ignorance. God goes out of his way to say... Every time Jesus was asked, what will be the signs of your second coming? He didn't start off by giving the signs. First thing he said is, don't be deceived.
Yeah.
Don't be deceived. That's what all this is. And why is deception so dangerous? Why can't I just live in blissful ignorance?
Because you're going to be deceived and you're going to be going down the wrong, going through the wrong door. Here's the thing about deception. It's an important point, is that interesting, like you mentioned Agenda 21, you mentioned all the things that are going on, okay? It's a different way of selling it. The Bible is saying, hey, don't do this. This is what's going to happen. You're going to have a one-world government, one currency, one religion. They're expelling this out. But on the other hand, Agenda 21 and all these federal bankers, the IMF and the governments, this globalism set up, is all pushing it like, oh, this is a good thing. This is what you want to have happen.
Yeah.
And that's what I find so interesting. It's like, wait a minute. Here you got one very old book that's saying, beware of this, and then you got your other so-called leaders that are saying, hey, come on, follow us. Yeah. This is where we're going. It's just a different way they're trying to sell it.
Well, deception is an interesting thing, because it was the very first murder weapon in history.
It was.
And it actually killed more people than anything ever, because it's still killing them. That's why we die.
Mm. Yeah, and by the way, for those of you people that don't understand how a curse works, it's biblical. And you guys understand, but right now we still are absorbing the fallout of a generational curse that began with Adam and Eve. Something that they did has now been passed down to every single human. what does the other 90% of our DNA do? I mean, when God said he put skins on us, I think he's talking about he put this meat suit on us, whereas before we were light beings that could have God in our presence. But once our DNA got contaminated, he can't just show up anymore because that's darkness. And pure light will extinguish dark. It can't exist through maybe the very laws of nature that he created. Who knows what's behind all that? And that's not the only generational curse. A lot of people that are wrapped up in demonic evil are there because their parents or their grandparents or their grandparents' parents, yada, 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 did something to let something in. And yes, you can do it with a Ouija board and a lot of other things. Those warnings are not urban myths. They are very real.
Yeah, that's a real tool made into a board game so
Right.
kids can play it.
Well,
at
that's
slumber
why
parties.
deception's so important.
Oh, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we are all subjects in God's kingdom, whether you slice it or not, which means we need to understand his rules. And what this campaign of deception since the beginning of mankind has done, it has gotten us to the point where what we think is good is bad and what we think is bad is good. So there will be a point in time where every remaining human on earth is going to have to make a decision about whether to accept the mark of the beast, whatever that is, whether it's a chip or a tattoo or an injection or who knows what exactly it'll be. But if you are deceived and you have no understanding of the spiritual war of what's really going on, you'll have these two decisions in front of you. Had this little thing injected, I'll never need to carry around cash, or I won't need credit cards. I just have to swipe my wrist across a payer. And by the way, there are now people that can live an entire day just scanning stuff. That's how close we're doing it. It's happening. Just it's not.
I see people do it with their phones.
It's not global. I mean, you need it to get into your
Downright
office
creepy,
with some
dude.
companies. And what's going to happen is these people are not going to realize, okay, wow, this deal sounds good. You're going to put $50,000 on my chip. I can buy and food and water and feed my family and move into this luxurious whatever that's been built. Or you cannot be part of the new world system and we can chop your head off.
Right.
Now, if you are spiritually awake, you are going to choose getting your head chopped off, which will make no sense to the people that are, I just got 50,000. You just sold your soul is what you did. You have just punched your ticket literally for hell.
Yeah, you've
or
jettisoned-
for
you've-
Hades,
you've-
which is the holding area before hell gets
You have
populated.
jettisoned your salvation.
We got to be close to a break. Are we close to a break? Should we take one?
I don't know. You want to take a break?
I don't. I
Let,
thought,
let me throw something out real quick now that we're talking about that. It kind of follows along. You know this Anthony Bourdain. What do you think about that whole thing?
I feel bad for him, dude. I really do. It's just sad. You know, whether he was suicide or murder, it's just starting to kind of feel a little bit.
When a suicide gets that much press,
you know,
Well,
I
let's
just
think about who this guy is, right? He works for CNN. I've never watched the show. to be
he's
honest with you.
dating Asia Argento,
Argento,
who is
whose
a
father is
Satanist right out of the Satanist playbook.
Well,
Apparently
once you
so.
start seeing this stuff that she put out, that her father put out, and that Anthony Bourdain put out, you start looking at it like, wait a minute, what? You know, because you hear the story, it's a sad story. This guy died. He was very popular. I don't know why he was so popular. I guess this
his
show was
show and that show. I don't know the name of it, but he'd travel around. It's
Yeah,
like a food
he
show.
traveled around and did.
But
did
go
regional
back.
food.
Why was he
Places-
popular?
Places
Because I
unknown.
think he agreed to something at some point in his life, and that is
absolutely because he's not a chef. He was not anything prior to. All of a sudden, he's on this show on CNN. It becomes huge. It's another example of.
I thought he was
like
on
you
the
were saying.
Travel Channel for a long time.
Yeah, he had
Well,
like
he was also kind of born into it. Like his mother was really high up at New York Magazine, and
his dad was somebody too.
Yeah,
I don't
like, he
really know. I'm
was-
not an expert on it. I
Well-
just
you always look. We talked about before. There are these common characteristics in these compromised families. We talked about Anderson Cooper before because he is the son of Gloria Vanderbilt, right? And so he comes out of the fashion industry, and now he's in a whole nother institute. You know, these are champions of two institutions. Fashion, which the devil cares very much about, by the way, and certainly the news. Well, what was another suicide this way? You got Kate Spade,
Yeah.
Right.
champion in the fashion business, family member that has been a massive success
In the
in a
movie industry.
completely different area. Chuck Schumer, Amy Schumer. I mean, we went through just example after example after example. And some of the common characteristics you'll find are you've got successful people in very different lines of work. You've got guys that go from being a chief of staff at the White House to being on mainstream media. Or maybe they become the mayor of Chicago. Once you're in, they will find a place for you. But what did they give up? I think they were deceived themselves.
Yeah, it's very
But-
interesting. One of the things that I just want to throw out there that I heard, and you hear it again and again. These are just different clues to kind of back up your point that you've been making all along about different people and where they go and how they're used. Right? You've got the disgraced FBI employee. I don't remember his name right off the bat.
Strozak?
No. This is somebody back from another scandal that Mueller was involved in. Could have been HSBC
Haldeman?
or
Oh.
no. You wouldn't recognize the name. It's
Okay.
basically nobody. But they leave these kind of positions. I guess the main story is they leave a position, a government position, and all of a sudden he's a head of a hedge fund. Right?
This happens all the time.
It happens all the time. You see all these people that go from, hey, you know, you're such and such in the government here, and all of a sudden you're the head of a bank.
You're a lobbyist.
Oh, yeah,
That's a
these-
big one there.
You know, one of the guys
Or a
that was
consultant.
interviewed on
Yeah.
the morning of 9/11, and I forgot the guy's name, and he was the head of, it was like Citibank or Citicorp, I'm not sure. It's 9/11, okay? And there just happened to be an interview pre-set up with the CEO of, and forgive me, you can look it up. And no one has really heard of Osama bin Laden yet. Not really. I mean, yeah, Bill Cooper on his
Yeah,
you
but
know,
that's
underground
obscure,
radio
yeah.
was saying Osama. And yes, he had been now on the most wanted list since 1999. And all of a sudden, you've got this. So if you're this high up at a financial institution, in my mind, there's almost no doubt you've seen the inside of something bad. You know, you're down with it to a certain extent if you're there. You have sold out. And he's sitting there educating the whole world on, oh, this was Osama bin. Like, he's acting. I'm like, really? How the hell do you know
you work
that?
for a bank.
You should be worrying about, like, a EBITDA chart. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And it just happened to, it just looks like such a cheesy game show when you look back on it, like all the mistakes they made. And I've gone from being like the apologetic conspiracy theorist, like, oh, you really need to look into this, you should wake up a little bit, to being like, well, if you haven't opened your eyes yet, because I'm not the first person that said something to you, and I'm not the second or the third. I mean, come on. A lot of people, and there's no one now in the United States that has not been approached by multiple people saying, you need to take a look at this.
Yeah, something's up.
Now, if you are keeping your head in the sand and you don't understand the rules of the spiritual war, that ignorance, that will not help you at all. And we are all a car accident away, a lightning strike away, a carjacking away,
Whatever.
an aneurysm away.
Yeah.
Your permanent
Yeah. Like I said,
home.
pack your chute before you get on the airplane. You know what I'm saying?
And so if you ever see someone like us being upset, at the end of the day, if you really want to go to what its core is, I'm mad. I'm going to say. Even people that I dislike in this world or that have gone out of their way to make trouble for me, I even pray for them to go to get shaken, to get woken up. Because no one, I mean, they just don't understand what is waiting for them. And that is no crime. Even God says it. There is no sin that cannot be forgiven. No crime is worth punishment in hell. And a lot of people are going to, unfortunately, figure that out when it's too late. And do you really want to take that chance that we're wrong, that all these people are wrong? Do you understand what you're really playing with here? Whew. Took a while to figure that out.
Yeah, but when you do,
It changes
that's
your life.
really the aha moment. Is when you really get it, when you really understand. You look at this whole chessboard and you realize the simple facts that we kind of run through. Right? God is real. Jesus is who He said He is. Satan's real. Angels are real. Demons are real. All this stuff is real. It's actually literal. Once you kind of process that and realize it, worldview upside down, everything changes. That's the real aha moment. Then, really, everything makes sense. And then, before too long, the very first sentence in the Bible, you just accept it at face value, and all the rest of it falls in place. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Once you accept that statement for what it actually is saying, the whole rest of it, just fits. If you have a problem with that sentence, then you need to get on that, because that's really it. That's the gateway to understand the whole story. If you can't accept that sentence, then you gotta tackle that.
Because my story was a little different, and I had that aha moment for me was November 22nd of 2011. I'll never forget the day. I've now been researching this 8-9 months. I now know 9/11, total false flag. I've now followed the financiers of 9/11, leading to the central banks, leading to all of these other just nasty events in human history that are not what we thought. And they all lead up to this small group of people that happen to praise Lucifer. And I even was aware of this, but I still didn't believe Lucifer was real. I'm just like, why would rich people praise something evil? I mean, they don't need God. They're rich. I mean, they don't need... Why would they even take that chance? And it was like the 8th or 9th guy that had defected that I was now interviewing or listening to his testimony, and he's like, no, you don't understand. We literally, demonic spirits at the highest levels of Freemasonry, they appear to you. They give instructions. That's how they are operating. And all of a sudden, that was my... In that moment, all I knew was... I just knew it. And there was something supernatural that happened, because I had a goosebump attack that was times a million of anything. This sounds unmanly, but I almost fainted. I was in shock. Like, I just had to sit down, and it was an information dump I can't even explain. And then right off the bat, I'm just like, well, okay. And in that moment, I knew God, Jesus, and Satan were real. And my first question was, okay, but then how did we evolve? Like, how does it... So God let us evolve. So I went back into Genesis, because now that I know these guys are real, which is a whole new thought for me, because I really, even though I was raised Catholic, I was a just-in-case prayer, remember? Just in case you're real, could I win the lotto so I can get some cocaine and go get some hookers tonight? You know, that was how I prayed. That's a joke, Mom.
Kind of.
The hookers were not kidding. So...
This is on tape, you know.
It is.
Whatever,
forever.
dude. You know what? I don't think my experience is that different from...
No,
That's why I want to... I don't want to come across like the mainstream media wants us to think what a Christian... a doily wearing... we pulled up in a horse-drawn wagon like we're Amish. Come on. This is about an inner belief. It's not about what you wear on the outside. You are going to be judged by your heart. There are a lot of people that act nice, and I know one of them. You guys know who I'm talking about. Very nice to everyone around her. But inwardly, just a ravening wolf. I mean, just... And I'd rather deal with people that wear their heart on their sleeve, or at least where they're coming from. It's not like you figure out God is real and then you suddenly become a textbook Christian. Dude, I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even do a show without effing swearing. Although I'm working. This
There,
is 2
good
in
job.
a row. 2 in a row.
Good job.
So then you got the problem. So going back to what you said, you got to accept that first statement, because I couldn't accept it.
Once you do, and you get that, really understand that what that says is literal and true, then, wow, all the rest of it will fall in place and it all makes sense. But if you struggle in with, whole evolution thing and all the nonsense accidents and the trillions of accidents that are impossible and math can't even explain, you could struggle with that and try to explain it away and rationalize it and come up with theories and all these crazy ideas about how butterflies are and birds used to be dinosaurs and all this nonsense. Or the simple thing to do is just accept that God created all things the way they are, and there's an agenda here. And look into that, because that's what really is, if you want to understand like where your place is, and that's where I think, all of us here had our own individual experiences with this. We realized that not only, and this is another thing you got to get your head wrapped around with the spiritual war we all talk about. We're not only the pawns in this war, we're also the prize. So we're in a very unique spot here because we are absolutely pawns in this war, no doubt. There's a constant battle, but we're also the prize as well. We're not just thrown away after they're done like a typical pawn would be, right? You're also the prize they're going after. So, and this for some people sounds like fairy tale, but when you understand it and you really get comfortable with science, I think Chuck Missler's famous for this quote: the more somebody really understands about science,
the more
comfortable they get with the book of Genesis.
And that's one thing that happened with me, because I wasn't the kind of guy that just would take it on faith. So even though I had this moment, November 22nd, 2011, and it's almost was part research, part supernatural. All of a sudden I realized, whoa, God is real. I then go to Genesis, and I'm like, all right, now how does evolution work into this? My belief system wasn't completely torn down yet. Now, it would be. And the beautiful thing about the internet is you've got access to every library on the planet. And if you want to teach yourself anything, you don't even need to get in your car to drive to your local library anymore. I'll just watch a seminar on DNA mapping, genetic biology, et cetera. You can actually teach yourself this. And when you actually learn a little bit about biology, and that's why I'll debate anyone on evolution or creation. And I used to be on the other side of the debate because I was just parroting what I heard. But now when you go look at it yourself, I dare you to go find me a scientist. Oh, no, not Michio Kaku, not Neil
Bill
deGrasse Tyson, not Bill Nye, and not Richard Dawkins. These are figureheads. Go find me a real scientist that really believes in evolution.
Right.
Go find me a mathematician. You can't. If you found them, it's because they just haven't studied that yet, or they haven't gotten to the nth degree of their profession. And that is when I realized, whoa, we didn't evolve. The simple cell wasn't simple. It was a 15 billion line code that acts as a miniature factory that duplicates itself, and it has information for everything. In this code is the fact that our eye with multiple moving parts is going to form. And any one of those parts by themselves, rods, cones, a cornea, a retina by itself, irrelevant. Had it really come through a mutation, it wouldn't have stuck around long enough for a rod to suddenly mutate. And then another million years, they still have these unneeded mutations, and then a cone mutates.
Wow. Ignoring.
It's so the symbiotic nature of how we operate. Now I understand why God says, if you don't see my glory in creation, you're damned.
But you don't
right
have any
off
excuse,
the bat.
right? That's
Now we don't.
right. Creation is offered as evidence itself, and that's repeated throughout the Bible, where this is just look around, basically, right? Is kind of the tone. Just look around, and you'll see it. Just look around. If you don't, then and you think and you haven't really studied it or even tried to do these calculations that are almost impossible with a whole notebook, then you don't really quite understand what is going on. So you can't claim that we used to be monkeys because you can't prove it. And this could go on and on. We could talk about this for 2 weeks solid. But again, that was really, I think, when you really get to a point where you're like, wow, this is more even if in the back of your mind you always thought, there's a God, you kind of believe, you're kind of a religious person or whatever, you're raised that way. When you really, really get it, that's when boy, everything you kind of have to rebuild your worldview in a way. Because you now have a whole new set of facts that fit in, and it becomes, at that point, it becomes a lifelong pursuit.
It is, because you're constantly, like you said, you hit on something. You think you make a breakthrough. Now you understand. But then, well, what about this? You know, like you said, evolution. Or there's so many different things.
Then by chapter 10, you're looking at, there were giants, really? Angels mated with human women, really? Okay. And you're telling me I need to trust this book? That was my attitude. Only
they
to
sell it
be
as
shocked
Yeah.
that there really were giants. You can find the archaeological digs. And yeah, the bad guys have people working too. And they will definitely have a guy going, oh, well, this picture's a fake. Oh, well, this was proven to be false. Snopes. Oh, this was debunked.
Yeah.
No, actually, it wasn't debunked. You're just looking at a website that said that, and you're just fooled. There's no shortcut. You're actually going to have to do your homework on this.
Yeah.
Or get really lucky and copy off of someone else's paper. That's called having faith, which I now have, but I did not have it on November 23rd of 2011, the day after. I still didn't have it. After trying to find a problem, because if the Bible's true, I had a personal problem, because I'm not living a life that the author of this book said I should be living. Right. So I'm trying to figure out, I got to disprove this so that I can, go to court, i.e. Judgment Day, and go, well, look, I found this thing you said. You said there were giants, God, and there weren't any. And that's chapter 6 of this book. So you expect me to just believe the rest of the book? So that's how I'm going at it like that. I'm like, I need to disprove that this is what's going on here. And I get past the evolution creation thing, and I'm just like, whoa, we did not evolve. And
Changes
then you look,
everything.
you can see how, like 9/11 became, the accepted story. You see how they did it with evolution. Without the science, it was a propaganda campaign begun in 1859 when Darwin.
Charles Darwin?
Yeah. What his book, what was it called? On Human Species, whatever.
Who cares? It's not even worth reading. But I'm going to ask Tony a question. So now we're how long into this now? Well, let's just say 5 years, 6 years since you kind of started paying attention.
Yeah.
Do you regret it? Do you wish that you never started looking into any of it?
Absolutely not.
Interesting. Interesting.
So you're asking whether I'd rather have taken the blue pill.
Would you have rather have just never had that conversation with Mark or myself and just went back to what you were doing?
No. Like you said, there's a comfort level. There's a comfort level that I agree with you on it. That once you hit, but you have to go through all these different stages.
The comfort doesn't. When you realize that your eternal future is fine, like you're gonna be okay. The things of this world just don't matter that much anymore. And you realize, you now can take it on faith. I'm now at the point where if God says everything on earth is going to get burned up, I believe there's...
Then it's going to.
We've all been through first grade. Looking back on it, you smile on it. But you go back to you in first grade, and I interview you, Dave, when you're in first grade. You're 5 years old. It's emotional. Your bad days are terrible. You don't see the light at the end of the road. But if senior in high school Dave could have talked to first grade Dave, you'd have been like, dude, relax.
Enjoy
Nothing that is going to happen here is a problem. It's all will be fine. When that settles over you, that is a really good feeling.
Yeah, I haven't yet talked to anybody who I know or have had this conversation with that has ever answered that question with, man, I wish I never would have started looking into this stuff. And really genuinely meant that.
I get that up until they find, and that happened with Betsy, and that happened with me as well. For the first 8 months, because I'm not on this obsessive kick, I'm waking her up in the middle of the night to go, oh my God, the CIA did this. I made these jokes before. And we would sit out having a glass of wine and talking about, I wish I'd never would have. I wish I didn't even know it. Like there were times where I had those thoughts, but from the minute I realized that this is about your soul and this is God and Satan versus humanity and Jesus was who he said he was, then I wouldn't trade that for anything.
Yeah, no.
And now I'll die for it. Like I will
Yeah, you're gonna anyway. So
probably. Well, you know, there will be a lot of people in the last days. We might even know some of them that will never die. They will just be.
that's right.
If you believe the Bible.
Well, it's about. You could argue it's the same thing as physical death, but I see what you're saying. Their body's not going to go into a hole in the ground or something like this.
They're not going to have to be in a bloody car accident to get to the other
yeah.
side, which.
Yeah, or get their head chopped off. Or
Yeah, I'd prefer to not get it chopped off.
dude, me too.
But if that's what the
They
cards.
start breaking out the barcodes, dude. I'm just gonna be like, all you guys here, see ya. Good luck.
Oh, but barcodes. Yeah, they had. Well, the barcode has a 666 in it. Well, yeah, because you'll find 666 all over the companies, the organizations, and the people that are behind Lucifer. You'll see the pyramid with the eye, and the 666, and the one eye, and over. They'll show you who they are.
Yeah.
You'll see it.
So you're gonna have lines of people giving each other high fives, waiting for their turn to the guillotine. That's a very strange scene if you think about that.
But
I
Because
don't
they're
think
literally gonna be. If you're in that line, you know. No,
I
doubt.
think, though-
for sure you would know. You're not
You
going to be
know.
in the line for.
right. So there's gonna be like,
'Cause you'd
dude,
succumb
it's
to the pressure.
happening, dude.
But I don't
So-
think they're going to be. Who was the guy? Ken Peters, his prophecy, remember, from the 80s? And he had a prophecy of being, in line at a FEMA camp. What's unbelievable, this is in the 80s when he gets this prophecy, okay? And you can go find it online. Now, in 1985 or so, whenever this was given to him, cell phones aren't a thing yet. TVs are big, fat things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he starts talking about things that we wouldn't even develop for 30-some years. He's talking about when this happens, cars are most of them are going to be shaped like jelly beans, and you compare to the boxes of the 80s, like my Ford Granada, total box.
Yeah.
They'd be self-driving cars, which we're starting to see. He said this thing, the way he described it was incredible. He's like, and what I saw in everyone's home, everyone had these. They had them in their hands and their watches. They weren't television sets, but they were like television sets, and you could just see everything. He didn't even call them computers, and computers were around in the 80s. And he's like, I had this vision. He goes, this is beyond a vision for me. And he's not some religious guy that just wanted to sell some books by telling this ridiculous story, because who wants to do that? It's a life of literally hell on earth but it's probably as close to hell as you'll ever get. A lot of people here are as close to heaven as they'll ever get. If your life is going smoothly, that is not a good sign, because you are not going to get saved without a lot of attention from the dark side, and they will try to trip you up. But if you think you got life figured out and it's just smooth and there's not a God in your life, they're not going to mess up your life. Why? You're filling out the playbook like you're supposed to. So we were going somewhere with it. You guys want to take a break?
I think Howard already took a break.
I mean, what's going on? What is up with the vibe in here today?
Yeah, we got
It's
like,
a vibe.
15 minutes left in the show, so might as well just push it through.
How much?
15 minutes?
Well, about
Half hour.
18.
Okay.
Hey, do you want to go through this?
That would be
Sure.
crazy.
Why don't you lead us through this?
You know, I
And I'll be back in one moment.
you go. Now I was going. Jay and I talked earlier. We're doing an outline, something that would take like 15 minutes. What's interesting is a lot of stuff we talked about is we've already talked about today. So I want Hooper to be back because we're going to play the quote game.
Okay.
Now go ahead, do your thing. Well, We'll improvise.
Sorry, dude.
We can improvise. All right, here we go.
Oh, so you've got a quote game for us?
I got a quote game for you guys.
Oh, this is
This was
exciting.
what was on my mind today, all right? Figured we play the quote game. Who said, if people in government are not held accountable, there will be an uprising soon? And here's a hint. This was a serious, dead serious comment made from someone that is the kindest, most honest, tender-hearted, anti-violent person that I have ever known.
You know him personally?
Yes. I'll save you. It's my mother. This is what my mother said to me at breakfast on Sunday.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
Does that one hit me like out of nowhere?
Where did that come from?
Well, we were having a little bit of conversation. You know, she's watching the news a little bit, you know, and she's starting to hear a lot of the different things that are going on. I think, what were we talking about? We were talking about, you know, the current events. We were talking about what's going on with Trump. I think this whole Trump phenomenon thing has basically been an eye-opener for a lot of different people. You're seeing all the way from when he was running for office all the way through now, where he's in North Korea sitting down with Kim Jong Un after how many years has North Korea been the axis of evil, according to George Bush? You know, it was Iran.
George Bush is the axis of evil.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we agree on that. So she comes out of this, and I start thinking about this as, and I got to read my notes here because we got so many different things that I believe there's an awakening happening all over the world, and with all different kinds of people. It's not just us that are waking up. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's global, and it is hundreds of millions of people.
Right. And there's all kinds of different war fronts that are going on. And when I say the war fronts, I put down 7 different topics, okay? The first one would be war between globalists and nationalists, okay? Folks like Nigel Farage out of England, James Perloff, right? This is all the things that we talk about. This is the IMF, Illuminati, whatever you want to call these guys. These are the people that are basically controlling the whole world, right? And now they're battling people that are nationalists, which the country's turned around. Trump would be considered a nationalist because he's talking about the U.S. You've got, you know, the Gert, what's his name, in the EU. You've got a bunch of these different EU countries that are rising up and saying, hey, look, we want Brexit. You've got Italy now that's talking about it. You've got all these different countries that are all rising up and saying, wait a minute, what are we doing here, right? So this is a war that's going on that's really behind the scenes. Everything that's going on in the news, you can tell that this is what's behind it, okay? You've got the intelligence community. This is one we talked about a while back with Steve Pieczenik, Dr. Steve Pieczenik. You guys know who that is?
Why do I know
Heard
that
the
name?
name.
He had a bunch of videos out. We've talked about him before.
Yeah.
I think if you go to stevepieczenik.com, you can
Yeah.
find
You can
out
look
about
him up.
it.
If you can spell Pieczenik.
He was, yeah,
Pieczenik, if Tony is right on his paper.
right. So you got Steve Pieczenik and Kevin Shipp. These are people that have been in the intelligence community for a long time, okay? They're saying there's basically a war going on in the intelligence community, which you can kind of see through what's going on with the media, right? He's saying there's the Army intelligence, which is the military intelligence, which would be considered like a Q, okay? And then you've got like the CIA civilian intelligence, which would be the Brennans, Clappers, and all these kind of folks, right? So he's claiming that there's this big intelligence war going on, that what he said specifically was that this group saw that these globalists, the Obama administration, they were going to go in and form a coup over Obama and take over. The military was going to do this. This is what they're saying. And they said, no, we can't do that. We're going to do it right. We're going to go through the election process and have this revolution a non-bloody.
What's your source on that?
That's Pieczenik.
Okay.
Okay. Now this guy has been in he's been in the government for a long time. He's known all the the Kissingers. He worked for Carter, Reagan, Bush. He's a guy that can come out on his radio show or website, books, whatever. He says, "Hey, look, 911 was a sham. This is all done by the government, and all these different people who are involved." He's not worried about them coming after him and taking him to court. He's saying, come take me to court because I've got all the information.
Little sidebar. When someone says this was done by the government, it's something I want to clarify, and I think you guys are the same way. Because some people get confused on this. I love this country, and I mean I love America. I love what it stands for, or at least maybe used to stand for, maybe will stand for again soon.
The idea.
I absolutely love it. And even to this day would give my life for my country. I'm one of those, I would if called on in some way. I think doing this in a way is that. I mean, this really ruins your life if you do it and you're doing it for your country. There's a difference between loving your country and loving your government.
Right.
Two very different things. Now, the government is a cabal of people that are running the country. But these people in this little, this administrative circle, I mean, we're talking thousands of people, they don't like America. They don't want America to be successful. I know that's hard to understand.
Well, it's in their way.
So when we talk about the government in a negative light, we're really, I don't like using that word. That's why I prefer cabal or elite or globalist or synagogue of Satan, anything. Because government includes people that are, by and large, I mean, the vast majority of them, they're good people that actually care about this place. They're policemen, they're teachers, they're the administrators in Congress and the Senate and all the public utility, yada, 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 yada. What we're talking about are a few very evil people that even to this, at this moment, hold some incredibly powerful positions.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not here for our benefit or our country's benefit. So I just want to make that distinction. You can love your country and question your government at the same time. In fact, I think one of our founding fathers said we're supposed to do that.
Well, they all hated government, which is why they tried to put a leash on it the best they could.
And they did a pretty darn good job.
I'd say so.
They were brilliant. I mean,
I'd
look
say so.
look how long it's been, all right? And everyone sitting at this table obviously believes that there's someone trying to take this government down for a purpose, all right? And if you were going to do that, if you were to plan this out, I'm going to take over this government, how would you do it? Well, they're doing it just like that. They're getting key people into key positions and infiltrating that way. That's why and you probably had the quote, if this country gets taken down, it'll be taken from the inside.
Lots of people have said it.
Yeah,
Right?
it's the only
Look,
way.
their plan was in print in 1920. And it was actually in print, I think, even in the late 1800s. And I think the plan has been in place since the 1700s, since even before our country was formed. The same way the World Trade Centers were planned to be demolished before they were ever built. I know that's outside of, our mental box. But the plan was written in a document called the Protocols of the Learned Elders. And it was a plan to basically circumvent the entire world. And if you read it, it's chilling to read because you see it happening. You see it's about, we're in a checkmate right now. The only something supernatural has to happen if life is going to go on around here. So we're either speeding up into the last 7 years or we're about to get a 20 to 30 year reprieve. Still don't know what that is. Yeah, I'd like to have a little closure on that one, but...
And what do you think would happen? Logically, what would happen if we weren't to have a reprieve? To take the government down, obviously, you would have...
Well, it's that they don't want to take the American government down. They want to
it'd have to be a controlled...
They want to take it over,
right?
Not to shut it down.
They want to make it bigger.
look,
You'd have to fall under. You'd have
where
to fall
America
under one world government.
goes, the world will follow. You can't say this really about any other nation.
That's
If
right.
America goes light, the world will. I mean, Satan must be just utterly pissed off, because if this ends up working, he's going to have to wait literally another generation. So I'd be, if you look, oh man, I'm not anywhere near making any calls on whether Q is good or bad. All I'm saying, he is an extreme polarization of one or the other, but you can't tell yet.
And there's information there that's logical. Would you agree with that?
What do you mean?
The Q posts that get out, those are all logical posts. It's something that it's not something that you look at and say, "Oh, that's BS." You know
No,
what I mean?
He's now posted 15 or so hundred times, and they range. And I haven't even read all of them yet, but there's so much variety in what he's posting. They don't all appear logical. Some of them are written in code, even some code that is hard to decipher.
That's true. Yeah.
Most of the code is really simple, and I understand it, because if things ever went the other way and Q were on trial, he's now would have plausible deniability about sharing government secrets. Mm-hmm. But he frequently, so much so that he authenticates himself. This Q is either the voice of or right next to the voice of the president of the most powerful nation on the planet. This movement we're a part of has never had that much wind behind their sails, which also scares me, because we are up against a master chess player, and we just figured out we're playing chess, not checkers. So we're not about to get cocky and, oh, we got this checkmate beat. This easily could be something that was pre-planned to capture folks just like us, in the hopes that, there would be some divine intervention. But
we kind of had the checkmate beat. Well, we absolutely had the checkmate beat. Like 100% had it beat, actually.
Individually, lots of people do.
Right.
As a nation, as a society, as a world, we do
Different
not.
story, yeah.
We do not. What is coming on the world, and even if it doesn't happen right now, if we're not entering Daniel's 70th week right now, we know it's going to happen soon. And soon, in biblical time, that could be 30 years from now. Either way, the Bible said it's going to happen, and we can see it. We see everything in there. We are becoming lovers of ourselves and lovers of pleasure. That's why we don't read the Bible. That's why we're so spiritually stupid, literally ignorant, really, because we ignore it. We ignore it. It's not a cut down. It's just a state of what you allow in. Yeah. And if you think, like, I had a little window in my kitchen. I used to look out it every day. And I used to try and imagine, if I'd never seen the rest of the world, what could I tell you about the world by looking out the window in my kitchen? Because all I could see were a few trees, some grass, a river, and a Detroit skyline. Could you see mountains or canyons? You wouldn't.
No.
And right now, what is our window to the world? It's a television set. Do you really think do you think they're here to tell you what's going on in the world, or to shape what you think is going on in the world?
All you have to do is visit a few different countries and spend some time with people that live there and talk to the folks there and get to spend time there, which, fair enough, not everyone can do this. But if you're fortunate enough to have the opportunity to travel around to places, not just Europe, because that's not that much different, but go, Mexico, spend some time in South America, go to Southeast Asia, hang out with the folks there, see how they live, see what's really going on. Compared to what's presented, you'll soon realize very quickly that it's not all...
Definitely the traveling helps. And that, for me, was a big one. One of the times I was flying to Colombia, I've told you guys this story before, was the day Pablo Escobar was killed, the big Medellin cartel drug dealer, killed on a rooftop in Medellin, the very city I was going to be sleeping in that night. Pilot gets on the airplane. announces it. Everyone on the plane starts clapping. Okay? This is about 1992, I think, 93, somewhere in there. Things like CNN had just entered Colombia. Colombia was very third world up through the 80s. So I'm actually watching CNN, an American CNN broadcast about the death of Pablo Escobar. It was worldwide news. And they're making it look like the country is all upset because their
devastated.
hero got...
Yeah.
Whereas, and they show this group of 50 people and go, oh, the people in Medellin are just, they're rioting because they lost their great loved leader that took care of the city. No, 40 people were upset. 1 million, 2 million people were quite happy. But they presented it as some, like, banana republic.
Yeah.
So I believe something interesting happened. It was one of those, because it's not all, there are a lot of, like, aha moments. There are a lot of, like, you see moments. Like, as Betsy was starting to wake up to things, and she was so resistant, though. It was such a battle. The battle really never got resolved. And we're in Boca Raton at the time. And our neighbors, and I forgot their names, but it was something like Maury, Jewish guy from New York, and married to an English lady. I've forgotten their names. But they would come over and they'd have cocktails, older couple. And Maury and I would debate, because I've now just discovered 9/11, and I'm like trying to talk. He's, Dave, you've lost it. You seem so normal on every other level. You seem intelligent, but how you get sucked into this, I don't know. And on one of those visits, Maury's wife, the English lady, had her parents, who are from Ireland, come. And we all sat down. We're having a glass of wine. The old conspiracy conversation comes up again. And for the first time, I wasn't on my own, because her father, because I'm sitting here going, Maury, there is a cabal. They are trying to take over the world. They do want to enslave you. He's going, you're an idiot, you're an idiot. Her father pipes in and goes, no, I can't do my Irish accent, but the chap is right.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That wasn't that bad, actually.
And he goes into it.
Sound a little Liam
And
Neeson.
he basically says all the things that I've been saying, and we have not coordinated.
Right.
And I'm just like, Maury, this is now 2 people in your life that are trying to tell you something. Shh, wake up.
Yeah.
That was one good moment, but they were fewer than more. They were fewer. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
There were few and far between, but that was one of them. Is it break time yet? Because someone
Yeah,
needs
Break time.
a break.
It's over.
It is
time.
break time right now.
Are we out of here?
We're out of here, man. Take us out.
Do we like this segment thing?
I don't know.
Did we even do the segment
Did
thing?
we do a
thought it
segment?
was cool.
I didn't think.
Yeah, I don't think we did that either.
Maybe next week someone else will do a segment.
All right.
Yeah.
It's a line segment.
Does somebody want to close us out? Someone feeling it today? Dave, do you want to close us out?
I can close this
Why don't
out.
you close us out?
All right, man. Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, what we always say, all this nasty, dark stuff, there's one way out of it. Look into Jesus Christ, who he is, who he said he is. And I use that in present tense on purpose. And just crack it open.
Figure it out.
Figure it out.
If we're wrong, you lose nothing. If we're right,
Yeah.
not checking will
Yeah.
be catastrophic for you.
Exactly.
So we'll leave you on that positive note.
And we'll be here next week.
Yeah, we will.
Actually, no, I don't think we will. I think
Actually,
we're off
we
next Thursday.
won't.
Oh, we won't.
Yeah,
be.
we're off next Thursday.
Okay.
We're going to run a repeat.
Then
Yeah, we'll run a repeat.
the week
We'll get-
after that. Then.
We'll get some out on Facebook.
All right. Word.
So we, Pete.
All right. It's been down the
All
rabbit
right,
hole.
ladies.
We'll see you soon.
Goodbye.